Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Salmon, I want to come to you just for a little bit of response for Mr. Hinojos's criticism of Chief Justice Roberts. When you look at his writings, and he said in particular in the most recent opinion we're focused on today, about the dissenting opinion, he said, the dissenting opinion defends, quote, a judiciary that picks winners and losers based on the color of their skin. What would be the consequences if our judicial system applies different laws based on race?
I agree that that would be very concerning. Individuals should be treated as individuals when they come before the law, and a judiciary that doesn't do that I would be very concerned about it.
Last week, the Students for Fair Admissions filed another lawsuit against West Point Military Academy, U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and the Department of Defense, citing the military academy's use of race as a preference in admissions. In fact, West Point publishes racial composition goals for every class, and these goals are adjusted yearly to reflect the enlisted population. During the Student for Fair Admissions Harvard and UNC oral arguments, what was the discussion around the military academy's race preferences?
There was a discussion concerning whether this was the kind of compelling interest that would evade strict scrutiny that would allow the military academies to use race.
And given the Students for Fair Admissions decision, how might the courts rule in the West Point Military Academy lawsuit? Do you have an opinion about that?
The Students for Fair Admissions decision makes it clear that what's known as strict scrutiny applies to the use of race in admissions everywhere, including the military academies. Any use of race must serve a compelling interest and must be narrowly tailored to serve that compelling interest. That is, the institution can't use race any more than is necessary. In the military context, what that compelling interest might look a little different than the civilian context. Nonetheless, given the toughness of the standard enunciated in Students for Fair Admissions, I'm skeptical that the military academies will be able to meet that heavy burden.
Mr. Squires, I want to come to you now for a few questions, if you don't mind. In an article that you and your colleagues from Heritage wrote titled Created Equal, a Roadmap for an America Free of the Discrimination of Racial Preferences, it states, quote, ending racial preferences will provide opportunities for policymakers to focus on often neglected factors that contribute to student success. My question to you generally is, what are those neglected factors that you were referring to in your colleagues when you wrote that article?
So I believe what we were referring to in our special report that came out after the decision, particularly was around family and family structure. And as I said, the research is conclusive at this point that children raised in two-parent homes by married parents tend to do better on a host of educational and social outcomes, better than any other family arrangement. But for some reason, this is not seen as a priority oftentimes with respect to our policy. And I think it's something that we need to discuss more. And obviously, we can't fix this in one particular generation, but that's part of the reason I talked about the success sequence, so that children, way before they start a family, understand that they have a sense of agency. So if they finish school, get a job, get married before they have children, their chances of being in poverty will be in the single digits. I think it's something that every student should know before they graduate from high school.
Yeah, and you anticipated my very next question because I wanted to raise that quote from your testimony because it was astonishing to me to look at that and know that that is in fact a great recipe and a great formula to getting out of poverty is to stay in school, to secure stable employment, to get married before you have children. Those factors are much more prominent than anything else. And so that traditional family environment is so important to raise our kids up and to allow them then to succeed and to do much better than we did. And that was one of the things as I look back on my upbringing that I credit a lot of where I am today to is certainly was not money, certainly was not influence, but it was the stability and the security of loving parents that guided me through that time to understand that my decisions would help me get further in life by working hard and by serving others and by instilling good values in me. Would you agree that that is a good formula ultimately to lead to success in this world?
Absolutely. If the first time your child is read to is when they start on their first day of kindergarten, something has gone wrong, regardless of what skin color that child is. So home environment matters a great deal as it relates to education. And I think of my own father, who was the chief education officer in our home, who stayed on me consistently because he refused to allow me to settle for a B plus when he knew that I could be an A student. So students need obviously quality schools with dedicated teachers and administrators, but they also need to have the types of home environments that cultivate a sense of wonder and a lifelong love of learning.
I love what you just said, and I'll yield back by finishing by saying this. I started my day out this morning talking to my first grader and my second grader back home on FaceTime, getting them to show me the books that they had checked out from the library and talking about their reading levels and what they needed to accomplish this week in school. It's very important. I yield back.